Hey Facebook world, Twitter world, YouTube world, Instagram world, whatever world you're watching this from, it is me again, Tanya Hills from Club Business Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp, and here from Scaling New Heights with Maurice from LedgerSync today. So Maurice, say hi, and why don't you tell them about LedgerSync for anybody who may not have heard of you?
Sure. Great to be here, Tanya. Thanks so much. Really loving the conference and having a great time meeting great people like yourself and everyone else. So have a great time. Really recommend it. LedgerSync, what we do is we basically connect into banks and we pull the bank statements and check images for your clients, feed that all into one portal, and then you could download the checks and you could match it to the transactions and the bank statements you can use for reconciliation. We push all that data into QuickBooks. So the main advantage is that you or your staff doesn't have to manually download copies of checks every single month. The most boringest job in the world is downloading check images, and it's just a waste of time and it's a waste of it's just not a motivating job. So hopefully we can automate that and give staff something a little more exciting and a little more fun things to do. But yeah, and getting those check images, that's really important. We got to know who those checks are written to.
Absolutely.
And having that, and I'll tell you a little story. My story behind LedgerSync. I started LedgerSync because I think it was like 2012, I got audited by the IRS. I thought, oh, I'm going to be smart, I'm going to do taxes myself. So I decided to do taxes myself, and then sure enough, I get audited for $10,000. And the reason is because I wrote a check, and I think it was for healthcare, and I didn't properly label it or something. And so my accountant at the time said, to get a copy of the check. And I'm like, sure, I'll just go to the bank website, it was Bank of America, I'll just download it from there. But it was close to 3 years, and B of A's website didn't have the check image anymore.
Wow.
And so I said, oh gosh. So I called the accountant, I said, I can't get it. He says, well, you better get it. You're going to pay the $10,000 fine, and you're going to pay like interest on top of that. So I called the bank, and I started, call after call after call. Make a long story short, I was able to get a copy of the image and send it over to the accountant, and everything was resolved. But he told me that this is a common problem. I thought, is it really that common? He says, this happens all the time where we need to get copies of checks, we need to get historical data, and the banks will only hold it for a certain amount of time, and then it's gone. And so, so that kind of got my wheels thinking about creating LedgerSync, and that's how I started the company.
That story really relates to me, and I think to a lot of other people out there, because I know the apps that I love to work with the best are ones that truly are, have come out of a problem and can truly solve that. And because you felt that pain yourself, I mean, there's nothing worse than an app that creates something that they think is a problem and it's not really a problem because they haven't felt the pain and understand. You felt the pain and understood, and that is great. And you're right, that is a problem. Like Canada, especially up in Canada, it's 18 months. We sometimes don't even get those checks right away. We can't get the check images until the statement comes out.
That's right.
So how can we do real-time bookkeeping when we can't get that? In QBO, story into it, this is true. The bank fees are fixing all the time, or breaking all the time. No, it's not your fault. But we go in there, and again, up in Canada, I know it's slightly different down in the States because they use a different connection. But I know I've heard this problem from other people too, is that when we go to pull it, all of a sudden it's going to download, and I go in and I'm having to open 20 or 30 of them that are just repeats of ones that have previously downloaded, and I'm like, I just want this last previous month. Where is it?
Exactly.
So, and that's awesome, so that you can solve that. You can get the checks right away, so that if your client forgets to snap a picture and send it through whatever receipt capture app you're using, or anything, you've got that.
Right, and to add more, think about the productivity. So if you're paying someone to basically download checks, are they mechanically going in client by client, account by account, and downloading checks like a machine, so to speak, like a robot? No, they're downloading a couple of checks, they're checking, they're doing something else, going onto the website, doing something else, taking a phone call, and what should become like a 10, 15-minute job turns out to be an hour. And I validate this with many, many accountants. They say it all the time. It's impossible to focus for 4 days straight just downloading checks at the beginning of the month. It's not possible. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we can automate it and, you know, and save everyone time and make things easier for everyone else.
No, that's awesome. And you are working for the Canadian folks watching.
Yeah.
You do work with some banks up in Canada now, correct?
That's correct.
And which banks is it that you are currently connected with in Canada?
We're working with RBC, Scotiabank, Bank of Montreal, a few credit unions as well. TD Bank is kind of, it's hit or miss, but we're working with them. But we've got most of the Canadian banks, and you know, full disclosure, our back end is supported by MasterCard. So you know, probably the best fintech company out there in terms of accessing data. So they're the ones that are actually helping to connect and pull in the data.
Awesome. Well, I do have to say, I did hear a story, and this will probably jog your memory, I'm sure, when you hear this. So Maurice doesn't know I'm saying this. So Richard Rupert Roberts, hi Richard, had actually told me that with LedgerSync, he was like, oh, how good can this be? How good can it really be? And he gave you his account number for, you know, his or Kevin's, and it was like account number 4 or something like that,
right,
on this really obscure credit union in this small town, and you got it.
Yeah.
You had it connected.
Yeah.
And that was like, wow. That kind of blew me away when I heard that. I'm like, okay, this is telling me you got the right system in the
It's so funny. This morning I was talking to a customer of LedgerSync, and they were talking to me that they were happy that they were able to pull a bank statement from this tiny little credit union in Washington State that only has 4 branches.
Wow.
And he's like, you guys were able to access the bank statement from there. So, you know, that's the idea. We want to be able to have the breadth of you know, accessing as many banks as we can, just making it really simple to access the data. You know, trying to get those bank statements and check images simple, easy, automated. That's the goal.
That's absolutely awesome, because I know that is a huge pain point. You know, we can't get our work done on time when something breaks on the other technologies that we're using, and then that puts us behind them with the client, which, you know, the client then feels it's our fault when it's tech, and you know, we can't blame the tech, because then it just sounds like we're making up excuses.
Right.
So to have this back up, like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we are at Scaling New Heights. LedgerSync does not have a booth, so how do you find Maurice? Well, this is what he looks like, LedgerSync shirt, absolutely, and just walk right up to him and say hello. Now, do you have any, and I should have asked you this beforehand, I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, I can't remember if I asked you, do you have any, like, you know, free trials or anything? Perfect.
Yeah, so we have a 30-day free trial for LedgerSync, so anyone can try it. And look, if anyone needs more time and they want to play with it some more and everything, we're super flexible. Anyone can email me or email our team and say, hey, I need more time. Yeah, I want to try things out. And then in terms of discounts, we'll always try to work with folks and make it affordable. The goal is to make it as simple as possible and to make it affordable and just basically you know, help your workflow and just take care of the data. We want to make sure you have the data, you're able to access the data, and you're able to you know, get the client data and just move on. That's basically it. So we'll work with you in any way we can.
Absolutely, because I'm sure all of you know out there, and if you don't, you're hearing it at every conference you go to, especially Scaling New Heights, that advisory is where it's at. If we can get the data, we can then advise on the data, and that really can increase our value with our clients.
That's right, and I love being at I like being at the beginning of the supply chain of data. So it all starts with the bank data. If you can't get the bank data, you can't do your accounting work, you can't do advisory work, you can't do anything.
Yep.
So I'm happy, and I'm really glad to be doing what we're doing, and it's great people like yourself and Richard and everyone else you know, at Scaling and all the accounts and bookkeepers we work with, and excited to do this and help out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So just before we wrap up then, was there anything else you wanted anybody, all the folks out there to know that we haven't discussed or hit on already?
We're working to expand the number of banks we have for checks, and as you said, Tanya, we're expanding into Canada. And look, we're always open to feedback and ideas and things that we can do. We've got a really strong development team, and the team that we have is, you know, our staff's really excited to work with accounts and bookkeepers. So, you know, open-minded, really excited about just working with you, and you know, excited to hear things and feedback and ideas, and we'll try to make it happen.
Awesome, that's great. So as we wrap up, I know you guys are probably sick of hearing this and have seen all these puppies around, but LedgerSync is one of the sponsors for the puppies, and the money is going to, of course, Beagle Freedom Project. So there are 2, but one already got adopted out before we even had the interview. So there was one LedgerSync puppy left to adopt out, and of course they are the sweetest little puppies because you don't have to feed them, you don't have to walk them, you just have to love them. So just look for me or one of my team, and all of LedgerSync's hashtags and Twitter handles and everything else that we could find is all on here to be able to thank them. And I'm sure Maurice would love to see the journey and, you know, of your new little puppy as you go home. So that's great. And just make sure that you tag LedgerSync and of course Beagle Freedom Project. And so yes, thank you for your sponsorship to that. And just to let you know, if you haven't heard me already, $850 from our sponsors here is going directly to Beagle Freedom Project. So that's absolutely awesome.
Amazing.
So, yes. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And thank you, Maurice.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Look for Maurice. Talk to him. Reach out to him if you don't see him. Reach out on the website.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.